Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. My name is Brutall, and with me today, I've got not one, not two, but three prominent melee figures in the WoW community. Before we jump into that, and before I introduce them, I just wanted to say thank you guys for being here today. I really genuinely appreciate any time individuals like yourselves carve out time to come sit down, chew the fat, talk about WoW, and talk about things we care about. So we're going to start with Psybear first. Please take as much time as you want, maybe like a minute the most. Introduce yourself, tell people who you are, where you're from, where they can find you, what's going on. Take it away, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Psy. I've been streaming for like 8 years now, 9 years, been playing WoW for 20. Most people seem to know me as a feral guy, but I have more recently been trying to play a few different things, trying to play all the different druid specs, trying to get into a bunch of other specs as well, like on beta. I'm testing everything, every single spec in the game. I also play a lot of like Final Fantasy 14. Looking forward to PoE 2 with flipping Druid coming out there. That'll be good fun. But yeah, I stream, I cast, I make YouTube vids. Just fully ingrained in WoW and gaming, basically. I guess anything else? I think that's a lot of it.
I mean, yeah, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, people can find you everywhere.
Yeah, Psybear_TV on anything and everything, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I say this every episode, but just so you guys know, all of our Twitch names, or in the case of Word Up, his YouTube channel can be found underneath our webcams. So feel free to follow them, subscribe to them, support them, let them know how much you love them, and that kind of stuff. Psybear, you're amazing. Thank you for being here. Jedith, I'm shooting it over to you, man. Who the heck are you? What's going on?
Yeah, my name is Jedith. I am a YouTuber, Twitch streamer, everything else social media person. I've been playing Havoc Demon Hunter for the majority of my time being a content creator, and I've been making guides on that. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/JedithTV, where I make all kinds of guides on Havoc and now Devourer, where, again, that's that word that's hard to pronounce that we all struggle with.
So this is a melee episode. What are you doing? Pump the brakes, all right?
Hey, it's a melee hybrid, okay? It has melee abilities.
That's fair.
So I think it still counts. Yeah.
That's true.
Yep. So, yeah, if you guys are looking to maybe try Devourer, you can check out my YouTube channel. And if you're a Havoc player and you don't already know my videos, you can check those out as well. And that's about it for me.
And real quick, you're hosting the Break the Meta today, correct?
I'm casting, yeah.
I'm sorry, casting. Yeah. I apologize. Yeah. What time does that start for you?
For me, that starts at 6 p.m. Eastern until 9. So
make sure you guys check that out today, please. Go show Jeff some love and the other casters there.
It's happening right after. What's happening right now?
MDI?
Yeah. So MDI is going to be hosting / raiding us right after they're done. So it's going to be a party over on the Raider.io channel.
Nice. Last but certainly not least, we have a guide writer, a video maker. The man has been in it for decades, it seems now. The one, the only. And by the way, word up, people were very excited to hear that you were on the show. I'm not just saying this, by the way. People were very excited to hear that you were on the show. They said, and I quote, "You were a good catch." Who are you? What's going on, man?
Oh, well, you've not seen me on these for a while. I've been playing WoW for like basically since it started, but I'm known as the enhancement guy by people, but I'm more of, I just play Eddie Melee. I've been writing guides since Legion, so that would be 10 years, give or take. I do Feral, Havoc, enhancement on Icy Veins, and enhancement on Wowhead. I write a lot of articles about how much I like or dislike WoW at the time. I've recently made videos because no other enhancement players got alpha, and enjoy that, so I'm just going to do that more now. And I'm more of a raider guy, but if you can give me an excuse to play melee, then I'll probably play it.
You'll be happy. I understand.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, again for being here. I really do appreciate it. I want to go around, just do a quick icebreaker. I like to do this just to get the ball rolling here, and we're going to start with Psybear again. I want to know, what is the melee moment that has defined your experience at some point in WoW's past? Was it a scuff dodge? Was it a mechanic that you died to getting one shot? What memory springs to mind for you?
D, all of the above. I've fallen off things. I've jumped into things. I've been where I shouldn't be many a time. I don't have a massive defining like melee moment, But I guess definitely in choosing melee as more of my main thing, because I'll play some range specs, but I generally see myself as more of a melee guy if I really had to choose. And I think just defining that was just the freedom in mobility, the freedom in movement. Generally, like I'll use Tiger Dash on Feral Druid instead of Wild Charge because I like to think that I'm just very slow mentally, so I'll react to things late, but I'll just use nice big movement speeds to get me where I'm supposed to be, even if I arrive there a little bit late. And I guess those are like my defining melee moments, I guess, of what really makes me enjoy melee and what I find most of my experiences revolve around.
Jedith, what about you, man? What springs to mind for you?
So yeah, so melee, they get painted with the brush of Zug Zug Brain. We just go in, charge
Never.
in, guns
Never.
blazing, and often find ourselves in situations that lead to our death. Well, because I also play Havoc, I also get painted with the brush of just like zoomer monkey, doing backflips, flying off edges, and all of it is absolutely true. I can just think of like every time I've been in a dungeon, most recently like Halls of Atonement, where you have to fell rush to get somewhere or whatever, and you just go right off the edge. That defines the gameplay for me. Now, I will say it has been rolled back a little bit because the movement for damage thing has kind of been pulled back a little bit. But back in the day, like in the Shadowlands days, that was all that ever happened to me. It was just constant embarrassment on stream. So yeah.
Word up, you've been playing a lot of melee for a long time. There's got to be one standout moment for you.
Well, if anything's got to cleave, then I'm a magnet for it because your brain switches off. I'm too impatient to wait for cast times. But my guild would probably appreciate mentioning the infamous Black Hand smash that I might have eaten about 10 times in my trial. So they'd love to hear me reminisce about the really embarrassing introduction I had to all of them. That's probably that's the melee moment.
I'm not a big melee guy. I haven't played a lot of melee in my time, but the one thing that springs to my mind is during Gorefiend in HFC. I don't know what happened, but I accidentally disengaged into the giant hole in the back of the room. That was embarrassing, but that's just one of many embarrassing moments for me playing the game.
It's a good thing Blizzard's simplifying specs and removing a lot of utility and defensives and stuff. They're limiting our ability to do these things, I think.
That might be.
Yeah, well, now we'll have to find the mobs to do it. Who was?
Real quick, the one thing that I constantly push in each episode is making sure that we have viewers know they can submit questions by typing the command question. I'll do my best, and I'm going to make an extra effort today to ask questions during the show. But if you want to ask a question on Twitch, just type in the command question followed by your question, and it'll pop up on my end. Also, the after show today it was going to be my wife. Sadly, she's feeling a little under the weather, so I'll be hosting today's after show today. We'll talk about the show, you guys, and how everything went, and answer any questions that didn't get asked during the show, and we'll talk about next week's show, which I'll announce at the end of this show. But enough about saying the word show. Let's begin the show, shall we? Jedith, I'm going to start with you. Melee right now, where do you think it stands with Midnight? We just came out of alpha. We've been in beta for a couple of weeks now. Do you think Melee is in a good place? Do you think they're struggling a little bit based on Delves, Mythic Plus rating? We just had raid testing. Where do you see Melee falling into things?
It's hard to say in terms of tuning right now because things are all over the place. There's some specs that are doing like triple other classes damage. Like BM Hunter is just absolutely destroying everyone right now.
Yay.
Tank damage is through the roof. It's hard to really say at the moment.
Outside of damage, though, like how many melee specs, and maybe word up, maybe you can chime in a little bit here, but do you feel like melee, do you think things are functional and fluid, or do things feel kind of clunky and maybe not in the great place right now?
Well, I know that the prune comes up a lot, just in general right now about Midnight. And I think like melee specs in general were more susceptible to getting hit by those. Because like ranged casters always have that one binary, we have the cast mechanic. And the way that they make melee more fun is over the years, they just add mechanics over and over to the spec until they've got loads. And some specs got a lot cut and then had them replaced, and that was fine. I think that's like the baseline for a lot. And then some specs had a lot cut and nothing replaced it, so they feel a little empty. But generally, I think I'd say of the two batches of specs, Melee is probably on the better end.
Oh, okay.
Generally speaking, there's a few ones that aren't, but I think they're doing okay.
Psybear, do you think Blizzard's on the right track with Melee this time around, or we're not talking about the UI yet, for the record, all right? Just to be clear, we're not talking about some of those changes. We're talking about the actual Melee specs right now.
So, I mean, is this with the prune in mind? Because, like, I don't think there are maybe one or two things that I've personally tried. I've maybe tried half the specs in the game so far. There's maybe one or two things that I've tried so far that I feel are maybe improved going into Midnight, and I'm looking forward to playing them in Midnight more than I am in playing them in the War Within. So, like, is that with that in mind, or
I for the context of this question, yeah, let's say it's with that in mind, like going into midnight orientation in mind, yeah.
So I think, what do I think with Melee? I think if with Blizzard's intent of pruning things, I think many things are on the right track. So I look at something like Assassination Rogue, for example. I like how Assassination Rogue has been iterated on, and I'm actually looking forward to it in Midnight. Now, I'm not an Assassination main, so I'm going to have a slightly skewed view of it compared to somebody who's mained it for the last 10 years. Same thing with Enhance. I think Enhance is only better off because of Midnight changes. Now, we have Word up here who I'm sure can say whether or not I'm cooked, but I look at Enhance and I go, wow, I don't want to play it in the War Within, even though I've played it historically, but Midnight, I'm genuinely considering playing it as, I don't want to say maining it, but maybe as a second character or something like that. I think Elemental Shaman also looking really, really good. So, but that's a range spec, so we won't talk about that one.
It's all good.
So there's definitely some melee specs that I'm looking at, and I'm positive about where they're going, and the prune is affecting them in a positive way, I think. And I am looking forward to their gameplay. Some specs, not so much. So it's a mixed bag for me with Melee, I would say, going into Midnight. But in terms of raid design, because I know, I know you said about like delves. We just had raid testing over the last couple of nights, and I found the bosses that we did test. So we tested the one boss in the Dream Rift, which is like a big dragon boss that like flies up in the sky, and you have to do some stuff. And then the Void Spire, which is the 6-boss raid, we tested the first 3 bosses of that. And I didn't feel like any single boss there felt bad as a melee. Now, it was only the first 3 bosses of the raid tier, so generally those are going to be quite quick anyway, and not something you're going to get too caught up on. But I found being melee there felt good in every single one of those 4 fights, so I'm generally happy so far.
That's good. Yeah, I know for me, I don't really play a lot of melee. I kind of dabble a little bit in Outlaw right now. Poorly. So I don't, but I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like someone who's been playing Melee or Assassination in with your example for 5, 10, however many years, of course they're going to have a different perspective. There's always going to be some subjectivity to it. Yeah, Jedith, what do you think, man? How's Melee feeling right now? I know you're kind of in that mid-range with Devourer. That's a hard word to say. But how do you think Melee's shaping up and feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, just going off what Sai said, I think, yeah, we tested those raid bosses, and I couldn't pick out anything that seemed like particularly bad for Melee, even though I wasn't playing Melee. I'm always like, watching and seeing what other people are doing, and nothing seemed horrible. So I think we're going to be fine. I think we're in a position where, we're used to just the way combat works for Melee. We're always moving. We're always kind of like, moving around and dodging mechanics on the floor. And I think that training is going to do us well going into Midnight because of the way that combat is evolving and changing with the new, I guess, paradigm of combat. So I think as of right now, we're pretty good.
I think just to touch on what Sai said, sorry. The one thing that I do feel has changed when I look through the specs is, like, as a main of a spec, it's very easy to know whether or not it's, like, improved or got worse going into an expansion. But when you don't main the spec, there's a lot of factors that make it like unapproachable. I think the enhancement on live right now, if you don't have a real investment to it beforehand, there's almost no chance you're going to like jump in and go, I'm willing to learn all of these different things. But if they've pulled that back a bit, which they have in the prune in a lot of cases for classes, where it's a bit easier to sort of look at it and go, I can guess how this is supposed to work. You've got an easier, like a lowered barrier to entry for anyone who's looking at a spec and thinks that might be fun. And I think it generally, like I said, melee tend to have a lot of those things. That a lot of this is unique to the spec, and you need to understand it. But we're not going to tell you how, kinds of things.
Yeah.
Psy may agree, but Feral is one of those. Absolutely on live.
Absolutely.
But how they've pruned it is, I would say, lukewarm on Midnight, but some of it is good. It's a little clearer how you're supposed to approach it, at least compared to live, because live keeps a lot of it in a little box.
Do you think that that's probably the biggest directional? I'm not trying to I'm not trying to lead the witness here, but do you think that's the biggest directional shift coming from the War Within the Midnight? Is the fact that things have been simplified, things have been made a little bit more intuitive and understandable? Or is there something else you think that comes into play going into Midnight with maybe not even just melee, but everyone at the moment?
I think that's the driving force behind it. Ultimately, like I think they've identified that a lot of specs and just the game in general can be really unapproachable, and a lot of specs are. I want to be clear how I word this. Every time it confuses people, but like a spec that's complicated doesn't necessarily mean that it's hard to play, and that goes both directions as well. A spec can be really hard to play, but it's super simple. You understand it within like 5 seconds. It's just in the game, it's hard to pull off. And I feel like they're moving more towards that bracket where they want simple to pick up but hard to actually execute specs, rather than having ones that are sort of require a dissertation to understand. And then when you start playing it, you go, well, it's just 2 buttons. I didn't need to do all this research. Like, that seems like the shift that they're moving to.
Can I jump on that? Do you mean things like, okay, I understand all my buttons in their simplicity, like I understand how they function, but then there are weird circumstances where actually you press this button on this many targets or in this niche scenario, and it's just knowing each individual scenario. There might be several different scenarios that you have to understand slight differences in rotation, but actually the individual button pressing isn't that hard in any one individual scenario. Like that kind of thing?
I think it's more like it's partially that. If you have like a spec that's got enhancement, is always the easy example because it's the one that needed the most aggressive pruning. But if you've got like 10 different buffs on your buff frame and 5 of them all reference the same ability, but only one of them changes anything you do, when you approach the spec, you look at all 5 of them and you see, well, this one says this and this button is important, but which one of these do I care about? And I can't tell at a glance which one I should. Whereas in Midnight, it seems like they've more just gone, well, we're only going to have one buff. And this is this one you actually do care about. We're not going to have any of these fluff ones that vaguely affect it. This is the one to care about. I think that's something that they've been doing more of, looking at classes in general, which is good, I think. Because at the end of the day, having this giant list of buffs or things that you can track in the Cooldown Manager now, that would just sort of flood you with information that you don't need is a great way to make someone not enjoy the first impression of a spec.
It's kind of like with Feral Druid, for example, with snapshotting. There were 2 different things that you were snapshotting. Now they've just condensed it down to, you'll still have snapshotting, but it's just going to be on Tiger Fury, not Tiger Fury and Blood Talons. So that kind of example there where it's like streamlining some of these effects, I guess, is what you're getting at as well. Yeah.
I think Feral is probably the most complicated one to unpack because it's a super core mechanic for ages. And it has been basically since I started playing Feral. But when you look at live and you've got like Tiger's Fury, and then you've got Blood Talons, and then you've got Pouncing Strikes, but that one only works on this button, and Blood Talons only works on these buttons, and then Moment of Clarity also works on this button, but you can't really tell.
And then you've got Sudden Ambush, which sometimes procs,
which is going to pound.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you've got all of these, like, this flowchart, like your John Madden flowchart from ages ago. all of those things are just going to make someone look at it and go, well, they say I need to do snapshotting, but I don't understand what this is, so I'm just not going to play it. And that's probably what they're trying to tackle.
Yeah.
Jedith, do you think that these changes, I mean, we know that they are deliberate design. That's a no-brainer, obviously. But do you think that Blizzard wants this design to work the next 3, 4, 5+ years? Or do you think that we're going to see an issue throughout Midnight to where it's like, okay, maybe we took things too far in one direction. Now we're going to make things more complicated, whether it be with procs, items, whatever. Or do you think that long-term, this is good for the game?
I think absolutely long-term it's good for the game. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. But I think that the problem is that they haven't followed up on their promises. Like, what they claimed their goals to be is very clear, and they've made multiple posts about it, multiple blue posts. Ian has done interviews talking about it, and we all get it. But also in those posts, they say, "Hey, we're going to do this to accommodate what we're changing." Whether that's default UI updates or giving us more tools like damage meters, or just changing the design of combat, like in dungeons, how packs are put together, how many casters are in a pack at any given time. But all of those things that we've been given have been sort of half working, half baked. I would say even half baked is being generous. So it's not really inspiring a lot of trust. And the fact that it's just a couple months away, the expansion coming out is really scary for a lot of people. And it's some of the obvious things that they just haven't latched onto, that so many people are crying out about on Twitter. And it's just the answer's right there. Take the things that worked, like go into the plater details and find out how their stacking nameplates logic works. Just take it, use that. Like, stop fussing around with it and trying to come up with your own thing because you don't have much time. Like, just get it working. So yeah, I mean, they're deliberate in their actions and in their goals, but they're just not listening to the community. I think that's a completely different thing.
Cyber, how important do you think it is to listen to the community in this sense? Because I'm making these numbers up, but I think we all know that those of us who do Mythic rating, Mythic Plus, even at let's say 12 and beyond, we're just a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the people who play this game, whether they're just leveling casually, collecting things, running low-level Mythic Plus, or doing delves by themselves. Like, how important is it to listen to the community? Because let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, so I'm going to quote a friend of mine, Megaset, where she says, some of you WoW players are stupid. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's, I think, no, memes aside, I think that it's very important to listen to the community. But then also the community voted on bringing back Dawnbreaker. So you have to think about where we're, like, you have to think about, like, I'm not going to ask a butcher how to bake a cake, like I want to ask the relevant people relevant things. So there's going to be, the thing is with these days, there's going to be people that have every opinion on any topic. So, and this is a big thing about class design in general, is like, if you have 5,000 players that are die-hard outlaw rogues, right? They're die-hard outlaw rogues. They absolutely love everything about it. And then you have a potential 20,000 players that would play Outlaw if it was, let's say in this example, simplified. Then as Blizzard, you go, well, we really want these 5,000 die-hard players to be happy with that spec, but then we could potentially water things down a little bit and then bring in 20,000 new players, but those 20,000 new players aren't exactly die-hard outlaws. They're just going to kind of be somewhat happy, and they're going to mill about a little bit and be like, yeah, this is fine. Who do you cater more to? Who do you want to listen to more there? Do you want a smaller base that are diehard and super, super enthusiastic and love a certain thing about the game? Or do you try and appeal to a wider audience that aren't going to be as invested potentially? Or you don't always know how invested people are going to be when you make some of these changes. So I think it is really important to listen to feedback, absolutely. But I think it's also just important to know where that feedback is coming from. Also, like the incentivization or maybe the bias. So even if we look at it, right, how much should we be paying attention to people complaining about the UI on Twitter when they make a living from selling their UI? Now I'm not saying we should ignore them, right? Like, absolutely not. But it's just something to consider when we take maybe their opinion into count. Now, you might also have somebody who pays to get boosted through a lot of content, and they might, have a certain opinion about like getting boosted through content, and they're going to be like super in support of that. So yeah, that's what I think really is. We just have to consider where that information is coming from, who's giving that opinion, and maybe where some of their biases might lie.
Yeah. One of the things.
Can I just touch on that?
Please.
Sorry.
No, you're
when
fine.
you said when you've got 5,000 outlaw players I view it as well in Blizzard's case. You could have those 5,000 diehard outlaw players, and you'd have 5,000 opinions on what the part of outlaw is that they actually enjoy, because the number of people that overlap 1-to-1 with the spec, that like the whole holistic experience, is basically zero. And so when Blizzard tackle like what they alter or how they adjust something, you're not always risking like the whole 5,000 being angry. You're thinking, well, if we change this, we might annoy 500. The other 4,000 or so will still enjoy it, but we might draw in loads of new players. And at the same time, all 5,000 of those are also all screaming, we need changes. We need to stay interested. Like, change us somehow in the next expansion. But whatever they change, some of them are going to be upset about it. So it's this horrible catch-22 every expansion that they have to sort of navigate.
Can I give an example of that as well, by the way?
Absolutely.
So
no
go ahead.
So
sure there's many.
For example, Convoke the Spirits came in with Shadowlands. It was the Night Fae Covenant ability. And when that first got introduced, I was like super into it, really enjoyed it. And even we had it in Dragonflight, still enjoyed it. Now we're in the War Within. I've had it for 6 years-ish now. And I'm kind of ready for something new. Now, when Blizzard first implemented it, I really enjoyed it. I still really enjoy it, but I just think I'm ready for something new. So even when you have something that a player likes, like you're saying, What Up, you need to keep maybe iterating or change things for the sake of change, just to keep things fresh a little bit. Because now I look at it and I go, oh, well, I kind of want more in-con gameplay because I've been playing with Convoke for so long now. And that then makes another layer of difficulty with the design is, oh, but you guys said you liked this. Now you don't like it anymore? But you said you liked it. That can also make it difficult for the devs, I think.
Yeah. I sympathize with them a lot in this situation. And I think that's part of the prune is when everything's got so big and every season there's a set bonus that adds onto it. And then after every season, everyone says, wow, this set bonus was awesome. Can we make it a talent or something? Can we keep it next expansion? And then that keeps happening. The whole thing eventually crumbles because it's filled with all of these like tertiary effects that they've put onto things. And they have to just, okay, we're going to cut it clean so we can give ourselves room to do it again. And then we'll have a prune in 6-8 years again, and the same thing will happen, just like it happened in MOP and WOD, and here we are again. It's just a loop that I think you're not supposed to like it, but it is going to always happen.
I mean, that's definitely one of the dangers or frustrations, I guess I should say, about a live service game is the fact that, especially with WoW, you have 20 years of things that have worked, haven't worked, popular things that have that they put in, unpopular things. I wouldn't want to have to strike that balance. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions because I'd most likely be super selfish. And I'd be like, I like marksmanship, HFC, 4-piece bonus, instant cast, aim shot, forever, the end, no room for discussion kind of a thing. I can't imagine it's easy. Jedith, I want to dial in a little bit more to the feeling of specializations and whatnot. Did you play alpha or has it just been beta for you?
Yeah, I was probably like the only demon hunter who had alpha for a long time.
When you logged into alpha and then of course now going into beta, like what is one of the first things you noticed? And I think you said there haven't been too many changes with Havoc. What's the first thing that you noticed that made you go, oh, that might be kind of cool, or oh, that's an interesting choice? Did anything stand out to you at all about Havoc?
Yeah. So yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head, and like not much has changed for Havoc. I think the biggest thing that has happened for Demon Hunter is just the fact that we have a third new spec, and when you log on to the beta or the alpha, like every Demon Hunter you see standing around the target dummies is all spec'd into Devourer. Nobody's playing Havoc, and that's not because it's bad by any means. It's just Devourer's the new shiny thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to Havoc, I mean, nothing really changed that much. There were a few talents that shifted on the spec tree. A few things got combined. There were a couple things that stood out right away. The fact that our talented ability Glaive Tempest is no longer an ability. Now it's a passive. So you talent into it, and then whenever you press Blade Dance or Death Sweep, it automatically uses a Glaive Tempest for you. So that's one of those examples of them sort of cutting back and combining things into one button, or taking multiple talents and combining them together. Um, Personally, for me, I was really hoping to see broader changes for Havoc rather than like smaller surgical ones. I think a lot of people say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But um, let's be honest, Demon Hunter has never been not broken. It's just always held together with spit and duct tape. Like it's just a mess. No matter how many tuning passes or changing things we get in an expansion over the patches, is just always kind of in disarray. So that's why I kind of felt myself being pulled more towards Devourer so far. Is just that it's, like I said, that injection of new, whereas Havoc is a little bit stale.
That kind of ties back into what I think it was Psybear who said it a minute ago. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think there's a lot of truth and a lot to say about that. But how do you keep people interested and invested and wanting to come back and test the new hotness, whether it's Devourer or the specialization plays completely differently? Psybear, is Feral feeling good right now? Like, was there anything that stands out? And do you think that specs need to be reinvented every 2+ years, or do you think it should remain, no pun intended, static, or whatever you want to call it?
Again, like you were saying earlier, with whose opinions, do you listen to people's opinions and community feedback? You will get people where a spec feels really, really good for a whole expansion, and then they go into the next expansion, not much has changed really, and it still feels really good. And then people go, this is boring. It's the same as it's been. And so it depends on who you're trying to please, really. In terms of Feral specifically and how that's feeling, you can play a very similar Midnight build right now on the War Within. There's a few talents you can switch around, a couple choice nodes that can actually play a very similar style to what Midnight is currently. And it's... Okay, so this is coming from someone who's been playing it for 10 years. I obviously am invested in Feral being not complex for the sake of being complex, but I want there to be a new challenge, maybe each expansion or whatever, something new that I've got to learn and get good at and iterate and elevate on the spec. I think Feral going into Midnight has been pruned and more clearly signposted on how you should be playing the spec, but I don't feel like there's been anything new added that I'm excited for. I mean, there's a couple new abilities like AoE Feral Frenzy, which is quite cool. Like, I am looking forward to that. But apart from that, really, I mean, there's like Chomp, which has come in. Again, these abilities by design are things that we already sort of have, but they've just added in a new application for them. Or Chomp is new, but it doesn't really, for me, it's just kind of a button you press when you're low energy. It doesn't really interact with too much else. I don't believe it even scales with your mastery. So it's sort of just, I can press this now, and you press it. It's kind of like Kill Shot or something like that for Hunter, in a way. Kind of it becomes activated at a certain time point and you press it. So there's like a couple things that I'm maybe tangentially excited for or looking forward to, but yeah, I don't think the spec's really been elevated. To be honest, a lot of it in AoE is going to be swiping, Ferocious Bite, and then on single target it's going to be Shred and Ferocious Bite, apart from a couple bleed applications, which I don't feel like I'm fully engaged with the spec anymore when I'm playing it on Midnight. Since I've been playing with Mythic Plus being out, I don't feel like I have to put anywhere near as much brain power into it. And for me, that's a bit sad because I just feel like it's been simplified a bit too much for my personal liking.
Sure.
I don't know if Word Up maybe agrees with that or
Word Up. Off to you,
buddy. I feel very similar about like where it is today. The they started with the prune and they streamlined how you would operate in the whole snapshotting thing by making it Tiger's Fury. They've removed Thrash since. They've been messing around with energy and combo points and the rate of just resources in general, which feels a bit odd. But it has a real habit of falling into just tread, bite in the time in between your dots. Because nothing came in to replace all of the snapshotting juggling that you would do in the like interim of Tiger's Fury. And that's just it's just worse, in my opinion, personally, because I don't feel like there's anything that makes me go, right, okay, well, I've done my bleeds now. What am I going to do for the next 30 seconds? It's just, right, well, we're back to the FF14, do my combo loop until my next thing. And like you mentioned, Chomp is, I think, maybe one of the most missed opportunity abilities on the whole tree. Because we mentioned that you play Wildstar, Brutall.
Yeah.
And you played Stalker. So I don't know if you remember an ability called Punish. But this was a button that you
I would be lying if I said I remember any specifics. I remember how it made me feel. I loved playing Stalker. I loved the rotation.
So Punish in Wildstar operated kind of similar to Chomp. You could only press it after you'd crit, and you were below like 20% energy.
Okay.
And when you pressed it, it was off GCD. It gave you 50 energy. So you would have this cycle of like generate up, dump, go to 0, punish, regen back to half, and it would give you a buff when you did it. So this was like a cycle of going up and down that was really engaging the whole time with your resource. And Chomp has all of the idea of that, the whole you can only press it when you're low. It does something big, but it doesn't do anything that interacts or that you have to then react to in response to it. It's just got a flat cooldown. And it could have been the thing, because it's on a node with Lunar Inspiration, so Wildstalker does have a thing. It's got Moonfire that it has to maintain. But Druid of the Claw in particular, it just has nothing. And you can feel how empty that component of the spec is. As a complete feral tangent, by the way, sorry, that took a lot as an example.
No, you're fine, man. You're fine. Really quick, I want to chime in based on what Drewish just said in Twitch chat. He says that feral, it just feels like something's missing. It's like the feeling when you leave the house and you know you left something on. Like, is that what you guys are kind of expressing right now? Is like, there's stuff to do, but
I can kind of, so it's kind of like, because they got rid of Blood Talons to simplify snapshotting, you now no longer care as much about the procedure in your rotation. You can kind of use any generator whenever, rather than before you could still use any generator, as in they didn't have a cooldown, but you wanted to make sure that you were using them at the right time to continue your Blood Talons, continue your bleeds and stuff without overlapping when you don't need to, or overriding when you don't need to. And then they've like removed that to simplify it. And then they went, well, because we don't have Blood Talons, there's not really any point to have Thrash anymore. So then they've removed that. So it makes sense to probably simplify. Like, Blood Talons is a little bit archaic, but they've removed that thing now. They either needed to update it for 2025 or, probably get rid of it. The side effect then being that then there are other abilities that sort of relied on Blood Talons to be valuable, Thrash. So now you get rid of that. So then you kind of just whittling away, and before you know it, actually there isn't much meaning in anything that you do. That's how I feel about it right now. It's just, there's just a lack of meaning. I don't know, Jedith, if there's like something in Havoc as well, or something like that you're feeling, where there's just you've kind of had this lack of meaning. Then like that's how your character feels. I don't know, or what up. I don't know if you guys feel this way.
I think Havoc is pretty good in that sense, but I've been hearing a lot of that same sentiment with Devourer. Like, I know this is a Melee podcast,
good,
but Devourer,
in range, man. Embrace it.
Yeah. A lot of people have been saying it feels like it's missing something, and it doesn't have a clear like purpose. Like, why would you play this over something else other than the fact that it's just ranged? It doesn't bring any like extra raid buff that Havoc or Vengeance doesn't. It doesn't have any utility. Even in PvP, I don't think it really has much to work with. Like, it's there to look cool and to feel cool, but when it comes down to it, like, it doesn't have a purpose, and it's missing. A lot of people say it's missing a AoE filler ability or like a spammy ability, because right now the way that it works is you do your cool things every 30 seconds or whatever, and then you're just standing there spamming your one button, pressing consume. And that's not a good way for a brand new spec to feel and function. Because this is supposed to be like the selling thing of the expansion, one of the selling features. And for people to already be like, doomsaying about it and saying it's shit, not a good look. And I'm sure that same sentiment is bleeding over into other specs. Like, you're saying Feral feels like it's missing something, and who knows what else. All the fire mage players are saying that same thing. Like, I don't know if it's just people need to get used to it, or if this is actually a failure on Blizzard's part. It's hard to say.
Do you think this is kind of a byproduct? I guess on one hand, MMOs, ARPGs, one of the biggest selling points, like you just said, new class, the new thing. But at one point in time, have we kind of already, well, we've tread that ground, we've already invented that, now we're reinventing it. I'm a big fan of injecting new classes, new specializations, but at what point is it, do we really have room? Do we really have a need for it? Yeah. I don't know if anyone has an opinion on that. Well, I'll speak at once.
I think that what they're doing with Devourer is basically they had an idea that was cool and popular with Shadow Priest about 4 years ago, and they thought, well, we do really want to do it, but Shadow has changed like 500 times now, and everyone has got all their opinions on like which of the iterations, or they really miss Void Orbs from 10 years ago, or whatever else that they were attached to. So we can't really like gut it and re-add it yet again. So let's take that mechanic and let's just build a new spec around it. That kind of feels like, and then we can use that as a selling feature. And personally, like the whole Void Form, it's decaying thing is cool. This is not melee related at all, but it's a really cool idea. But I don't think it can carry an entire spec on its back, which is kind of what Devourer is doing. And this is also the same problem that I think Feral's suffering from. A spec always needs like a couple of important mechanics, because you've got like your big moment, your cooldown. I'm getting to do my really cool thing. This is awesome. But if you don't do anything in between it, I hate to use it as an example, but Final Fantasy XIV falls into this a bit when I've played it. Like your cooldown windows feel awesome, and then the bit in between, you're sort of treading water, and then your cooldown is there again, and it's awesome. And Feral has that. I think Devourer really has that. It just has a more like elongated cooldown. Yep. And the specs that came off the prune, not so bad. Like Enhancement is a good one. I kind of feel like Havoc is in the same boat because it kind of plays the same. And Windwalker is another example. I think like that generally, you've still got something going on in between the cooldowns that you care about. And when they take that out, that's when the specs, especially in melee, start to hurt. Because casters have always got their, I need to optimize my movement. That's always a thing that they have to pay attention to. Melee, the punishment for melee is you can't hit the boss. And no one likes doing that. And Blizzard probably aren't that big on leaning into it. So all the time in between those cooldowns, there's nothing to engage you. You sort of switch off because you're just doing the same thing.
Can I ask you boys, do you feel like it's a lack of soul? Like, I've played I've played a bunch of different specs on beta, and fundamentally, I don't feel like there's too much that's really different. Yes, I've got some bleed specs that I'm playing. Then I've got some, I guess just instant damage specs and stuff. But everything sort of is feeling samey. It's blending into one. Even cooldowns are becoming very boring. They increase your damage by X% for X amount of seconds. And then you continue your regular rotation that you'd be doing anyway, but you just have amplified damage during that window. I just feel like I'm lacking a bit of soul in some of these specs. Like the difference between Assassination Rogue and Feral right now doesn't really feel that big. It's just Assassination Rogue, when they apply their bleeds, they apply them 2x2, like a little Noah's Ark situation, whereas Feral applies one of them universally and then individually has to like target swap spread, whereas Assassination Rogue can just spread from its main target with Crimson Tempest. It's like the mechanism is slightly different, but then once you've applied that, it's kind of the same. The everything's sort of playing very similarly. Do you guys feel that, or do you feel like there's a mini game with your spec that feels unique to your spec?
I think enhancement has that personally.
Yeah,
and that's okay for me because it's not too far removed from versions of the spec I've liked in the past. But I am finding, like, when I pick a spec, like look at a spec on alpha, and I read through like what people have been saying, I can look through it and see, well, I can identify it's not got a mini game, and if it's not got a mini game to it, I don't think that I'm going to enjoy it. Basically, and that happens far more often on Midnight than it does in the War Within. And I don't want to say it's a lack of soul per se. I think it's more like they don't realize how important that is for keeping someone engaged in an encounter, or worse, they couldn't think of something that would go in there, and so they just chopped without anything to go in the space. And either of those being true is, I think, the culprit and a problem.
I think potentially too, like what their goal could be is maybe they want to keep some specs that do have those mini games, and more of the engagement when you're playing it is with your rotation. They might also be designing some specs where it doesn't have that mini game, and your engagement is split between, you know, focusing and really getting the nuance of your rotation while also engaging with the encounter and like more environmental stuff and being a bit more heads up rather than like tunneling on your rotation. I think that's such a hard thing to do though after the game has already evolved into what it has been over the past few expansions. Like, it's what they're doing is such a bold and ambitious move, and it's really hard. I don't think that they're going to be able to do it.
Are those the right words to use here? Bold and ambitious. I'm not sure I'm not sure everyone would agree with that.
You know what that makes me feel though? Like, Jedith, from you saying that, is it feels like the first time, you know what this whole conversation surrounding Midnight pruning has felt like? The first time we ever got a stat squish in the game. Do you guys remember the conversation around it? Where it was like, oh, this is gonna be, you know, completely catastrophic. This is gonna be so disruptive. This is gonna change everything. And we sort of kind of got used to it. I'm wondering if this is going to feel like a bit of a stat squish. So they've gone, right, we've had 20 years of development. Let's stop it there. Let's do a refresh. And now we'll build up the complexity again from this standpoint with a 2025 gaming mentality in mind. Because I will say, as much as we've all generally been more cautious in our conversation about these changes. We have seen some positives, seen some negatives, but we're all aware that it's a little bit like uneasy. If you're a new player or somebody that hasn't mained a spec, I think a lot of these changes look really good. Like I've been saying, I've been going and playing other specs going, oh, thank God they made this pruning for this spec. I'm way more likely to play it now because I feel like I can go and hold that spec and understand it, and I don't have to track, like what I'm saying, 10 different proc-based things that a proc's a proc, but not always. Sometimes a proc's a different proc, and you're like, it's just procing all the time. So for some people, I think some of these changes will be really, really good. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. I mean, I know for me, I jump around classes a lot right now. I haven't locked in any one specific class or spec for Midnight yet. And yeah, like when I jump from either Aggressor Shaman to Preservation Evoker to Prot Warrior to Outlaw Rogue, sometimes I'm just I'm left a little befuddled and confused because there's just so much to understand at a glance. I want the game.
I think that it's
go ahead.
It's a good thing that they've done. Like they did need to reset the baseline. I fully agree with that sentiment. In Melee's case specifically, I think that fundamentally the way that they design encounters, every melee needs a minigame in the time in between because they lack the minigame of positioning and casting.
Sure, actually.
And if they don't have one, melee feels empty.
Yeah, that's actually a really good transition. Well done, Word Up. I didn't even prompt you for that. Well done. That's a really good transition to the next topic here: encounter design, accessibility, quality of life, stuff like that. And I want to immediately throw this to Psybear based on what Word Up. Wait, I'm not pointing the right. Okay, now I have the right direction. Based on what Word Up said down there. There has been a lot of talk about melee-friendly design, and we just did raid testing. Did you do raid testing this week, Sai?
Yes, I did the first day of raid testing.
Okay. is the melee friendly design being kept in mind for these 3 bosses we've tested so far with the Mythic Plus that were, the new Mythic Plus, the returning Mythic Plus? Is their melee friendly design in position right now, in place?
So I did the four bosses that we tested on heroic difficulty, and I've done all of the Mythic Plus testing. So Pit of Sauron, Skyreach, Algathar Academy, and whatever one the last one is. Triumvirate. Yeah. So in general, I haven't felt like a massive difference between Midnight and the War Within design. Now, whether that's really a big positive or not, I don't know, but I haven't personally felt a massive difference. I'm somebody who I don't use combat add-ons in game. So for me, it's felt like a pretty seamless transition, really. I did find in Pit of Sauron, for example, there were the chain casting mobs that would, you'd interrupt them, you'd silence them for, I think it's different now depending on your spec, but I think Feral's interrupt is like a 5-second silence or something now. So you would see a significant disruption to the mob casting, but if you didn't interrupt them, they were just chaining. So that's something that I did find. They need to improve the UI on an important spell cast, because there are some settings you can adjust, but when a mob is casting a really important cast that you definitely want to interrupt, it's just a slight flash. That needs to be way more prominent, I think, or visually prominent. Like you need to see the mob in power in some way, shape, or form, and you can look in a crowd and say, right, that guy needs to be stopped. But yeah, in terms of Mythic Plus and stuff, I think I need more time to fully see how that's looking with melee and stuff, but kicking mobs definitely felt good. Also, the fact that now, so anyone watching that didn't see this, there is a permanent. Mobs will never immune completely from. Like they'll never have a complete immune to diminishing return. They'll always, if you use some kind of CC, they will always be stopped for at least a fraction of a second. So there's never a point where you try and stun a mob and it's on a DR and then the cast goes through and you die. So that felt really good, actually, in a Mythic Plus standpoint of knowing I can use a CC, and even if it's only for a fraction, I'm definitely getting a reset on all these mobs. So that was really, really good. Feral actually specifically, I don't know about you guys, how your specs are playing, but Feral specifically hasn't lost too much in terms of defensive strength or utility. So we're actually pretty good in Midnight with having a complete toolkit. Some specs I know are losing some things, so they might feel a little bit more vulnerable in those areas. In terms of raid, I felt like the bosses were perfectly fine for melee in mind. There weren't any mechanics that I felt punished for doing as a melee. Maybe the first boss of Void Spire, depending on your tank movement. But generally that was fine. And yeah, I think hopefully that answers as much from my end. Yeah.
Jedith, I saw you nodding a bunch there. How do you feel about it? Do you think things are fair for melee right now, or how do they look?
I was just nodding more towards the comment about defensives. Havoc got like so much more defensives to work with. We have 2 charges of blur now, and we have our Netherwalk, which is attached to blur. So we have an immunity every minute with 2 charges.
So full-on immunity?
Well,
like a chance at immunity, or
it's 100% damage reduction.
Oh, okay.
You still take, like, if there's dots and stuff, you'll still take those. And it's only for 2.5 seconds. But still, having access to that every minute, you have 2 charges of it, is nuts.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts. So that's what I was nodding towards. Also, I just want to go back to the comment about the chain casters that were in the dungeons you experienced. So far, those have been in, I'm pretty sure, all 4 dungeons. So it almost seems like a deliberate thing where they've put these casters in who are coded to chain cast, which is mind-boggling because it goes against everything they've been saying they want to fix and change in terms of Mythic Plus dungeons. So it's very confusing.
I was in that the one dungeon, I can't remember what it's called, with Lothraxian, and there were some casters in there. I don't know if that's in the Mythic Plus rotation. This is based on a couple of weeks ago, but man, those casters in that dungeon just would not stop casting. And I found myself scratching my head because it felt so contradictory to what they had been saying was coming down the pipeline with casters and whatnot.
In the alpha,
I'd talk about the raid test briefly for a minute, but I wish I could share the same sentiment about defensives because my spec lost like well over half of what I had, which is horrible. But the raid tests, I think because I did all of them, they were all very sort of non-threatening melee encounters without seeing the mythic mechanic. They were all very fair. Like I felt as a melee, I could do whatever I wanted, and I could contribute to almost everything. There's obviously things like AoE and spread mobs that were just not intended to get to do on some things, but that was fine. I am much more concerned actually on the raid design as to I think it's going to impact casters more than it is melee going forward because of the prune. Because they've disarmed ranged movement so much that it implies they want to use force movement to disrupt them as a mechanic. And that obviously is not going to do anything to melee. So if they do that, one, ranged are going to hate it. But two, I really, really hope they don't lean on the melee equivalent of that, which is make it so you can't hit the boss, because that's not fun at all. And they have leaned on that a few times. But that's not there yet. So I'm holding out hope that they just won't.
Just don't do that.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's not even fair. Because some specs, like I found out the other day, I was playing DK. They have like 90% of their abilities can just be done from ranged. So yes, they miss out on auto attacking, but Unholy DK can just cast from range. They're a true mid range spec. Same with Survival Hunter, based on Eagle. Eagle. What is it called?
Fear of the Eagle.
Aspect of the Eagle, or is it right where you can attack from range? So they can do Aspect of the Eagle, and they can use Raptor Strike from range and stuff. So some melee actually get it way worse than others. Some just can't attack from range, period. So yeah, hopefully there's none. I mean, having to leave melee just feels bad.
On that, I think it's the non-zero amount of the reason. I know that theme and everything else is involved, but a non-zero amount of the reason that BM Hunter and Ret Paladin are so popular is because both of those specs, for a reasonable amount of time recently, get to buck the trend of getting punished by their roles' punishments. BM, I know that this is nothing about how easy it is. It's simply, if you force range to move, BM don't care. But every other ranged hates it. And if you force a melee out of melee, every melee hates it, but Ret don't, because half of their stuff is ranged. Or in Dragonflight, all of it was ranged.
Can I ask you guys?
And to just sore spot as well, just before. I know that bringing that up hurts for a feral player, because you were in the cool club of getting to ignore it for a while too.
Well, and even back in the day, we used to have bleeds that were strong enough that it was sort of, oh, well, you're a bleed spec, you get the advantage of maintaining a lot of damage when you move away from the boss, but now it's like less of a big deal. But yeah, like I'm curious for you guys, because in my head, if you play a BM Hunter, that spec should categorically never be top DPS in any situation.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
Whoa.
Because the advantage being that it gets all of the advantages, like you said, of a melee and a range. You can move while firing. You are able to do mechanics freely. You should, by default, never be top DPS. But then people say, oh, that's not fair, and yada, yada, yada. But like in my head, that is fair. There's a trade-off there. And maybe it's like a classic WoW mentality. I play a lot of classic WoW still, and I do like that spec envy, that class envy, where you play one thing and you have your advantage, where people are envious of you because of a thing that you provide. But you're envious of them because of something that they have. You look at a paladin, they have bubble, and you think, man, that's so OP. They can bubble and full heal every however long. That's so OP. But I have stealth as a rogue or something, and so I can get out of situations with stealth. That's OP in that context. Or I can lock a mob down with stuns, and then I have access to an interrupt. Nothing else has an interrupt. Do you guys, am I just thinking in a classic mentality, or is that like a reasonable thing to think in retail WoW?
That's exactly how it should be. Like, that's why we have different classes and specs in the first place, right? Like, what?
Sick.
It gets harder and harder as we get so many of them, but that's exactly how it should be. Like, every class and spec should have different advantages and disadvantages and bring different things to the table. And you should see someone else doing something and be like, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could do that? But also for them, wouldn't it be great if they could do what I could do? I wanted to ask you guys though, in the most recent build that we got on beta, they buffed the amount of damage auto attacks are going to be doing. So
yes.
some classes and specs, it's like in their top 5 in their damage breakdowns. So that's going to be pretty bad for melee if there's a lot of area of denial things that are happening that are pushing us away from the bosses and not able to hit them. Is that a concern for you guys?
To be honest, in enhancements case, especially, it's just more of the same, because while autos aren't in the top 5 damage breakdown, there's so much stuff tied to doing them from the spec with like imbues and resource procs and everything else that once you get forced out of melee, it's sort of everything falls apart. In Feral's case, I don't think it'd be that. Not as bad, but still not great, depending on which hero tree you are, because it'll be worse for one than the other. But I don't feel like that influences it that heavily. It was an interesting choice to do, though, especially with that they like tailored the buff depending on the spec, implying that they were thinking like some of these specs attack really fast and they've got effects that do extra stuff, so maybe they don't need that much. Whether they got the right number on them all, I'm unsure. But
I feel like
I can see why they did it.
The idea behind it was to make it just easier for the average person to do passable damage because it's happening passively from your auto attacks. But I think like part of that, finding ways to maintain uptime and all that stuff as a melee is kind of like a form of skill expression. And
absolutely, yeah.
I feel like that skill expression should be what takes your performance from good to great and not from like absolutely horrible to passable.
It feels like Blizzard are trying to look after the lowest common denominator. It's like No Child Left Behind World of Warcraft edition. It's like trying to make sure that the bottom kid in the class is like able to keep up, And I don't mean that I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, like, I think Blizzard is just trying to like make sure but I just don't know to what ends. Like, I'm very much somebody who is like merit based. I think you should have to work hard to earn things. It's like if you want to improve at something, you should have to put effort in. And I see a lot of comments on YouTube, on Twitter from people that don't feel that way, that don't feel like they should have to work hard to earn something more. That goes back to my example with BM Hunter. It has so much mobility and freedom in its rotation, everything. So I don't feel like it should ever do the most damage. But then people say, well, that's not fair because then I can't play it because it doesn't do the most damage. And it just feels like we're in this weird zone right now where there's no reward for wanting to try. Like, I'm looking at Feral for Midnight and I'm saying, well, it's been watered down enough that I don't feel like there is that mini game like Word Up says. Even with the snapshotting, I don't feel like it's interesting or exciting enough that I think, well, I'm just going to go play the meta. I'm way more likely now to just go and play whatever's going to be meta because I don't feel a clear enough distinction between what is between the different specs that why am I not just going to chase damage now? And I've never ever played this game like that in 20 years. I've never chased damage over having fun. But if nothing really feels exceptional, then I'll just go play whatever does the most damage.
Yeah, that's like a massive risk with what they've done. I want to touch on the, like, I really do get the idea of there should be spec envy at all times. Like, every spec should have a thing that's cool. But I don't like that being the damage that they do. Because I think that's a really unhealthy thing of, I'm really envious of this spec because it's the top damage. So wouldn't it be cool if I was the top damage? That seems like a really weird metric to go off. Because everyone wants to be the top damage. So, like double jump. I really wish I had double jump all the time, but I don't because I'm not a demon hunter, and that's life. But I think that like a spec being difficult to execute or being more complicated to operate on is the reward in itself for a spec. If you're opting into playing the thing because you find it fun, and you shouldn't feel obligated to pick the most complicated one because it's rewarded with the most damage. But at the same time, the way that BM is built is that it is both simple in like form and execution, and it doesn't have to deal with the sort of oppressive movement requirement. And that seems like it's the perfect storm to get people to play it, but it's the perfect storm as well to make everyone really angry that BM gets to ignore everything and just ban Black Arrow right now. And this like translates directly to melee as well. Every spec that didn't have long arms before they removed them hated the ones that had long arms because they didn't have to worry themselves with the fact that, oh, this mechanic has got an AoE that's just slightly big enough to make you not be in melee range, but the long arms guys can still hit them. And I think that's a real like push and pull. But touching that BM is, too much.
Psybear, have we seen any meaningful improvements in, I mean, speaking of long arms, like hitbox sizing, movement, AoE consistency, range tech, anything like that going into Midnight that you know of?
There's no Dimensius, I'll tell you that. I don't know what that guy's problem is. He's a real jerk. You try and soak the circle on platform 1 and also attack the boss, and there's like that little gap, but then a circle spawns right on top of you, and you're like, come on, man.
And his arms are in your camera.
Don't forget his hand is in your face.
Yeah.
And you've got to move and soak to suck your buddies down, and then also like covering it. Terrible. I didn't like Dimensius, as you can tell.
Same.
I don't know if I don't know if I've seen anything in particular where I don't think I've seen anything in particular. Nothing that's jumped out at me.
Jedith, have you seen?
There was bad hitboxes in some of the raids. I noticed it very tangibly. The 2 dragons they tested yesterday. On Thursday. They had horrible hitboxes. And their like center hitbox as well was so small that some effects didn't chain off it or didn't AoE around them. That was bad. Nexus King was fine. There was, I think it was the first boss, the tall guy that we played tic-tac-toe with. He had a very small hitbox as well. And the reason that when hitboxes are bad, it's usually they've got a smaller one than it looks like it should be. And you can't infer I'm in melee range. They need to be careful to not do that now because we haven't got. I don't want to sort of drop the helmet down the mines and wake up all the UI people, but because we haven't got the UI to carry us for some of these things, we have to be able to know whether we're hitting them without relying on error text.
Jedith, have there been any, I want to circle back to UI in a minute, but I want to direct a question to Jedith real quick. Have there been any melee pain points or moments in recent WoW that you see Midnight fixing, or do you think that those pain points are still going to exist moving forward simply because that's just the way that melee happens to be?
I have something in mind that comes to mind right away from retail, and I don't know if it's going to get fixed in Midnight. We can only hope. But like the first thing that comes to mind is, Priory of the Sacred Flame, when you're going into the second boss room and you have all of those Templars and the Paladins that are constantly casting Consecration on the ground right underneath their feet. It's like a big area of denial. And it drops right at their feet, like they're right in the center of it. So there's no micro movements you can do to dodge them. The only way out for you is away from the mob and you're not attacking it. And there's like so many of those casters or the people that use that ability in that pull. So like on top of a million other damage events that are happening on that pull, all of the divine tolls and all that stuff, you can't really greed and just stay in the consecration because you're taking so much damage anyways. That's like been the bane of my existence as a melee player recently, even as a completely mobile spec. Like, I'm playing Havoc. I can fell rush out. I can backflip out. Like I have that ability, but still I'm also just not hitting the mobs very much. And then, again, going back to hunters, there's going to be a BM hunter, a marksman hunter in my group who's just absolutely blasting that pack. And
I need you guys picking on BM hunters. Stop
BM hunters, man. We hate them. If you're a BM hunter, get out of here.
Nerf all of them.
That hurts, guys. I've made BM hunter for the past decade. All right, please come on.
Yeah, but you played marksmanship a bit too. Marksmanship's
That's true.
Got a bit more finesse.
True. That's true. When it had instant aim shot, that is true. Yes, indeed.
But yeah, I don't know if they're going to fix that. That's just like, how else are they going to, instill challenge into a pull or a pack without just making things hit really hard? They have to do other environmental things like, stuff on the ground. So I don't know if that's going to change.
I'm actually really, you mentioned Final Fantasy 14 a couple times, so I feel like I can now mention it without getting clowned on. So
it won't be your fault. No problem.
Yeah. But I really like some of the design of Final Fantasy 14 and how they do combat. Now, What Up's already mentioned that the rotations aren't necessarily really where the complexity comes in. A lot of it is on
Not all of
rail.
them, by the way. Just
Yeah,
some of them are good.
yeah. Like I play Monk, for example, in FF, and it's a good enough
Yeah.
challenge. There's a lot of OGCD components to FF, so even if the base rotation isn't like super difficult, it's doing that whilst also constantly doing mechanics, and I really love that about Final Fantasy is like constant mechanic cycling. So there's whenever a mechanic occurs, everyone's doing something. It's very rare that a mechanic occurs that like only one type of role is doing something. Yeah, okay, there might be only a tank buster, but sometimes they'll do a tank buster with everyone else having to do other things as well as. So I really and then over the course of like a 10-minute fight, let's say, every 10 seconds there's a new mechanic. So you're always either just finished with the mechanic, currently doing a mechanic, building up to the next mechanic. That's always sort of the flow that you're in. There's never really too much breathing space to relax and rest ready for the next thing. In general, obviously it depends on the difficulty and what content you're doing. But what I also like is the telegraphing of things. Like if you look at Lost Ark, if you look at WildStar, I didn't play tons of WildStar. I'm sure you guys can probably jump in on that more so, but I really I'm a sucker for just like a cone with a like a emboldened like coloration of that, so you can just see like I'm in the spell effect or I'm out of the spell effect. I love that kind of stuff, and I really want to see more of that kind of telegraphing in WoW. I want a lot more, instead of just dodge swirlies at your feet, I want a lot more in, out, left, right, shake it all about, that kind of stuff where there's a lot of, I mean, it's hard for range, right? Because you don't want to give them too much movement. But I do want to see more visual mechanics from Blizzard, as well as maybe like boss visuals. So like I'm gonna raise my this is my right arm, but I think it's mirrored for you guys, so it's fine. But I'm gonna like raise my right arm and then I'm gonna smash down on the right hand side, and just that kind of stuff. There's more complex versions of that, but that kind of stuff I would really like to see.
Yeah,
Touching on Final Fantasy 14, I'm going to jump on that really quickly.
Please do.
Final Fantasy 14 is designed ground up, I think, to let them do that, because all classes. I played Ninja, and I really like that. But it was the only one that sort of gave me the WoW vibe. But in that, every class is generally built so that when there's a mechanic going on, they can just stop and just do the mechanic, and then they can design mechanics so that everyone does it. Whereas in WoW, there is, and to me, that's like it's a positive. It's so asymmetrical in how every spec will handle a thing that if they do a mechanic that everyone has to do, and then you just repeat it over and over, so you're constantly doing it, some specs are going to be like, this is great. This is filling in the gap of I didn't have anything to do. And then other specs are going to be saying, why did you create this encounter? It is the worst 10 minutes I've ever experienced in my entire life. Why would you do this? And you'd have both of those people at the same time because of the way that the game's designed ground up.
Yeah.
And they didn't manage to pull that back going into Midnight. It's still the same. And I can't avoid saying it. The UI changes as well kind of means that they can't machine gun out mechanics in the same pace that they used to when mechanics did fill in for those gaps, for those specs. Because now you have to give time for people to react to them, because they can't have a dreaded weak aura that's going to sort of tell them exactly how to move.
So let's talk about the UI changes. I don't want to say the word issues. Let's just use the word changes a little bit. Jedith, I'm going to start with you. How do you feel about the UI changes and just the whole philosophy behind it? Real quick, I think the intentions are pure. How's the implementation? How's the execution?
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm on the same page. Like, again, agree with the idea, agree with the concept, think it needs to happen, but it's just been not where it should be. I think everything is way too rushed. This is something they should have been chipping away at over the past 5 years, piece by piece, rather than trying to do it all within an alpha and a beta cycle. There's so many things that still have a long ways to go. The damage meters are laughable. They show you how much damage you do, sure, but they don't tell you anything else. The unit frames, from what I've heard from Healers, not so good. I don't really look at unit frames because what do I need to see people's health for? I don't care. I'm just doing damage. There's just so many things, and I think even if they get it together, if they get it to a passable state by the time the expansion comes out, I think what they've done so far in just terms of the community opinion and perception of it has been a massive failure, and they're going to have to live in that for a while. Like, it's not instantly just going to get better. Like, they're not going to suddenly say, "Hey, we fixed everything. Here you go. Everything's perfect." They've already sort of tainted the public perception of this swap, and I think they've really screwed themselves over. So for me, like, there's things that I can just deal with personally because I use a lot of weak auras, but I also don't use as many as like the power users do. So I can get by with, get the cooldown manager tracking, at least tracking the things that it needs to be tracking, because there's still some things that aren't even in there that should be in there. Get that to a passable state, I'm fine. But other people need a lot more. All the healers need their unit frames to work, to show at least, when people have, dispels on them or whatever. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed the new icon that they have for somebody being out of range. I think they got it
Horrible.
backwards.
It's
They
so
got it
big as
backwards.
well.
That icon is supposed to be an LOS icon. So now when somebody goes LOS, their unit frame goes transparent or translucent, like it would if they were out of range. And when they're out of range now, they get that icon. I think they just got them swapped. Like, they're coded
I think
wrong.
so. Yeah.
That could be that.
Yeah.
Because it seems that way as well. Yeah, I think on Alpha they did something for like very briefly where that was enabled, and it did seem that way. It was more of like an LOS icon because your nameplate stays like it's
Like,
not transparent,
lit
it's not
up.
opaque or anything.
Yeah.
It stays lit up. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, weird.
Yeah, I think they just got it backwards.
Yeah. Can I jump on what Jedith was saying as well?
Please
about
do.
like
I was about to send it right over to you. Yeah.
Cool. Amazing. Yeah. So I find this very fascinating because I'm somebody, I don't use combat add-ons. I don't use weak auras for any of the specs I play. I don't use anything. Obviously, I have to. My guild forces me to use like liquid pack and stuff for raiding. Obviously, Fractalus, I have to use that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean I'm looking at it on my screen. I just have stuff enabled. So I've looked at this UI thing from a very unique perspective where I am trying to play the game at a high level, but also I'm not using UI things. And I'm trying to break down what other people are saying is like how reasonable opinion do I think that is, or how much do I agree with that opinion or whatnot. Because I know a lot of people are talking as if like the sky is falling, and I get that. And I've looked at it. First of all, I would agree. I think someone mentioned earlier, it might have been you, Jedith, saying about how it's coming from a good place from Blizzard, and I agree. At the end of the day, they're a business. They want to profit. They have add-on developers that are designing add-ons for free. The Blizzard don't have to get involved. Why would they choose to bring this in-house and spend money, hire people to do these jobs if it wasn't going to come from a good place with a good intent? So I think just straight off the bat, we do have to be considerate to the fact that they clearly want to do this because they care about a direction that they want to go in. They want more control in how they're designing mechanics and stuff, and they can go in different avenues now because they don't have to worry about weak auras solving things. So they can do more intellectual mechanics, more puzzle-based mechanics, rather than just dodge the swirly at your feet in 0.3 seconds or you blow up the whole raid, which is, obviously not super fun. But some of the stuff has been a really big improvement, like the edit mode stuff where the Cooldown Manager, I think has been great. That kind of stuff is all really, really good. Some stuff, though, agreed, like the DPS meter, just how are we not full on paying the details creator, like, I don't know, $20 and then just saying, can we have that? No, obviously, like, why are we not just paying them a sum of money and then saying, right, can we have what you've done? And then just putting a Blizzard UI on it and just baking it into the game, because like you say, you can't do individual breakdowns on abilities right now. It's all moving a bit too slow, and I'm a little bit concerned. But yeah, some stuff is just categorically worse off. The nameplates now, as somebody who has used default nameplates or raid frames, sorry, I use default raid frames on the War Within. I've tried to use the default midnight ones, and it's just not good. Like you said, the sort of LOS too far away indicator. There's like 3 different icons. If you have a poison on you, there's your whole bar turns green. You have an icon that shows like it's a poison. Then you have another icon to show it's a poison somewhere else. You have 3 icons for the same thing. It needs some refinement. It needs some improvement because the ones we currently have on live work better. But as well, I healed up to 3,500 this season as Resto, first time healing in a very long time, and I didn't play with any healing stuff, so I was just using full default UI frames for Blizzard, and they're not good. You can only track 2 hots at a time in the War Within, and there are just some other issues. I'm trying to think now, but that sort of thing where you just couldn't properly check how many hots you had on a target and their durations and things. So it was really awkward to heal, but it was manageable. You were just guessing a lot of the time and spending a lot of time over healing. Oh yeah, you couldn't track people's defensives default. So if they can fix a lot of that, I think that fundamentally will be decent enough for most players, I would say. But I don't know, that's a long spiel, but I just wanted to give all that sort of...
No, it's all good. Word up, what do you think, man? How's the UI coming along?
I'm very tentative about mentioning the UI because I know a lot of people are really passionate on both sides of this. But personally, I understand why they're doing it, and I appreciate it is good for the game. My problem is that they're not achieving what they said they were going to achieve, which is to retain customization and information delivery and so on. That's not there right now. I feel as a melee, especially, I'm right under the boss. I'm in the middle of it. There's a lot going on sometimes, and I need to be able to style how I'm given the information about my state right now in a way that is possible in usually quite a small space that's always on screen. And Blizzard's Cooldown Manager, the configuration, even the add-ons that have sort of tentatively hooked into it, doesn't do a great job. The Cooldown Manager, we need to rely on Blizzard to assign the abilities. Like, my spec can't assign sound alerts at all right now, which I use quite a lot on live for certain things. So if I can't customize that to sort of condense it, I'm going to be a bit harsh, but I think that the default UI by Blizzard is kind of ugly a lot of the time. And I know that a lot of people customize it into being uglier. That's very true as well. But the default one and relying on that and not being able to make it look a bit cleaner or passable scares me quite a lot, because I've used the same UI for like 14 years with stupid lines on it that people make fun of all the time. And I have a very small block of how I track my stuff. On Alpha, I can't track my resource because it's not a secondary resource, which I think is a major problem. But that's unique to enhancement. I can't customize like the order and position and size of my procs that I'm tracking. Kind of sound alerts, kind of glows. I need to rely on the action bars that need to be coded properly by them. All of those things are what I care about. I think the WeCores company, like encounter ones, they need to go. They're stupid. They're way over the top, and I'm fully on board with them doing it. And even worse in Mythic Plus, I cannot begin to explain how stupid it is to download like a pack for a season and be hit by the 5 million move laser beam like on you.
Yep.
That needs to go. But the thing that they said they were going to keep has gone with it. No matter how many times they say it, it hasn't right now. And that is a problem. I also like double up on nameplates are a calamity on there right now. They need, especially stacking needs fixing. But those are the only things I care about. All of the other stuff they're taking out, 100%. I don't care. I just want to make it look a certain way.
One thing I'd like to see them add, I don't know if they've commented on this before, but so they've added in audio alerts that you can assign to your cooldown manager for buffs or things coming up off cooldown. A lot of the sounds that they've provided have been absolute dog shit. And I can tell you why. I'm not just saying that because I don't like what they are. They're bad because a lot of them are affected with this really weird like stereo panning and reverb on them, which makes them really like grating to the ears and almost intrusive. If you look at like what Bigwigs uses for a lot of their alerts or recores, they're very like short in length and very dry sounds. Because if you're trying to use a sound to tell you of something that's happening in a split second, you don't want something that's super long. Like I knew somebody once who had an alert that said an entire sentence, and they never reacted to that alert until the sentence finished, rather than when the sentence started. So the same thing can be applied to just the length of any sound that you're using for any alert. Is you want it to be very short. And some of the ones in there are like pigs and
There's a
cats
15-second
and
wolf
goats
howl.
yeah, there's a wolf howl. And like I said, they're treated with this weird stereo panning that is just not pleasant to listen to. So one thing that I hope that they do is allow us to upload our own audio clips. And again, some people will go the exact opposite route with that and just, upload very long clips, and that's to their own demise. But for me personally, I would find my own like little things that I would use, and I would be much more content with it if I could upload my own rather than having to use what they've put in there.
I think the sound alerts is a really big one that I'm concerned that we're limited on what we can attach the sound alert to.
Yeah.
They have to assign it on the cooldown manager, and
Right.
then they have to flag it for what things it can alert. Because if I want to, in the case of like pandemic, this shows as well for like pandemic red border timers that they've got. They're a bit of a mess right now. If they don't flag it for that, I can't do anything until Blizzard implement it. And
Yep.
I went through the experience in the War Within of having no UI element for Tempest for my spec, which is a key mechanic, but there was none. So that relied on a weak aura to make it playable. So I know that Blizzard are capable of just forgetting and then not bothering with some of these things. So it's a case of like once burned, twice shy here. I've seen them do it once, and now that could potentially affect everyone. So I'm concerned that they aren't doing it right now because the cooldown manager hasn't really been hitting for me on the alpha or
Yeah.
beta.
It hasn't really changed over the past few builds either. I don't think there's been
No.
any changes to the cooldown manager since
Yeah.
alpha.
Yeah. Nameplates as well, big one. I know you guys mentioned it. Just the nameplates are not. They're making me feel sick. Like,
Yeah.
I genuinely can't watch it. Like, I can't do a. You can't play with stacking nameplates.
I
You
just
feel
turned stacking
goofy.
off.
Yeah, yeah, and then and then you just like can't multi-dot things, which is a bit. It's fine
Yeah.
if you're not a multi-dotting spec, but if you're trying to multi-dot, it's. Yeah.
It's so much more noticeable as a melee player how bad the nameplates are. I think because we're right in the face of it, that the whole screen when you turn stacking on turns into just a merry-go-round, and you can't find anything. They also they update slow, so they sort of really janky movement on the health bar. The bar graphic isn't. They're all like little nitpicky things, but I feel like the UI thing is genuinely impacting how much I enjoy the game. Not because they've removed things like weak or advanced function, and I don't need those. Just the base information delivery and how cleanly it's presented by Blizzard themselves isn't there yet. But I think it's more fixable than is being implied by a lot of people, and they don't need to like re-enable full-blown weak auras entirely to get there. They just need to be a little bit more aware that this is doing quite a lot of damage and be more clear about what they want from it, because they haven't been so far.
Yeah.
While you guys have been talking, I pulled up a Reddit post from 2 days ago. It's actually from Ellesmere's point of view of these stacking nameplate issues. You can see on the screen right now for anyone who's watching the video. It's not great. No, we've been talking about the UI for the past 10 plus minutes, and of course, not to come to the defense of a billion-dollar company, but it's still beta. Like, hopefully we'll see more improvements, but I think a lot of people, myself and others, are concerned that yes, there are still 2, 3, however many months until the game launches, but will they get there in time? Like, will they get there in time? That's the question. And
Well, the
obviously,
thing is, what if they don't?
You're right.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do if it's
It's-
just half-baked?
It's like a really scary prospect because we've seen how slow it moved from alpha to now. Because we were all in it really early, and it's not really moved very far at all.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of glaring issues, and it doesn't seem like they're sort of targeting the things that need the most immediate have to work right now features. And so if your concern is something that's a bit more lower level, like in my case, I've not got a secondary resource. Basically, all hope is gone on that, because right now the attention should be on, like, raid frames should be usable by healers. They shouldn't have like a buff icon on every single person in the raid when I use Mark of the Wild or Sky Fury. So I don't need to know that. Like, nameplates should be functional, but they're all like scattered everywhere, trying to plug holes in all the different elements where none of them are really working at all.
Real quick.
Like at the start of alpha, we were using the excuse of, oh, it's still alpha. There's still lots of time. But now we're at the point, we're past the halfway point, and we're still, kind of like humming and hawing, be like, oh, well, it's still beta. There's still time. There really isn't much time anymore.
There's not.
We're past
not.
that point.
Speaking of time and
We
not
have
having
to,
a lot
like-
of time, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Word Up. It is 2:31. We're 1 minute over. Do you guys? Is everyone comfortable? There's no obligation. You guys want to keep going for another 10 or so minutes? Because I got a couple of
that's
questions left.
That's
All right.
no
I'm much like last week. I'm holding you guys hostage a few minutes longer. So someone start the clock. Last week I said 10 to 50 minutes. It wound up being an extra 30 minutes. So forgive me. But yeah, Word Up. I did interrupt you. I apologize. Do you remember what you were saying?
I was just gonna say, like, when people say with this time to go, it's not like it's coming up tomorrow. You have to look at where we are today and when it's due to going to pre-patch, which is when these changes are likely going to go into effect.
Yep.
Which is going to be sometime in, I assume, January, February. That's when, like, the data mining is indicated. And then you've got at least a week for Thanksgiving. I'm not American, so I can't say for sure. I think that's next week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess.
Yes.
So you've got that.
Yeah.
So-
A few days from now.
So you lose that development time. You've got the time at Christmas where and New Year's where they don't develop as well. So that's basically like 3 weeks gone. And so instead of looking at it like it's 2 months away, it's actually more like they've got 4 weeks of development time left. Because then you take the last week off where they lock in the builds as well. So
Yeah.
the next 4 things has to have some monumental changes to get us across the finish line comfortably.
I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, so take this with a grain of salt, but I've heard, of course, that developers, in this case, the WoW developers, are always a couple of weeks ahead of what they've announced, what they've released, what they've made available to us. So assuming they're, let's say, 2 weeks ahead of what is currently on beta, maybe they've fixed a lot of these issues, on their build, on their end, but we simply don't know that. We're simply operating with what we have available to us right now, and what we have available to us right now is lacking, to say the least. There are frustrations and issues, as we have discussed, and as many people have discussed ad nauseum online. And it's, for me, my biggest frustration is that we have, and I know why they're locking down things. I agree with some of it, maybe not all of it. I get it, Plater, LVY, etc. But we have things that are functional working right now, and to go from something like that, and Word Up, I've had the same UI for, no joke, about 15 years now. With tweaks and modifications and improvements, but it's more or less looked the same for about 15 years. To go from that to what may be launching with Midnight is concerning, to say the least, and has me worried in that sense. I want it to work, obviously, but will it? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing as well, is I don't think that, because when you're removing, right now everybody has the freedom to do as much customization as they possibly want. People can make things exactly how they want it to be. Blizzard is going to remove that and give everyone a more standardized version of it. And within that, they need to make sure that they're hitting the base level of information conveyed across everything. Nameplates, raid frames, cooldowns, all that kind of stuff at its base level needs to be usable for every type of person,
Mhm.
I think people are probably being a bit unfair when they expect every little minute customization availability to them. But right now, Blizzard's not even hitting a reasonable baseline. Like I say, we're looking at nameplates, we're looking at raid frames. They're not even in a good spot now for a base level, let alone like layers and layers of customization. Like Jed is saying, the soundboard doesn't have tons of options, and the ones that it does have aren't maybe necessarily great. Nameplates, the options that you have for most things right now in terms of the customization is like, do you want to make it bigger or smaller, and then like wider, or like affect the width or the length, and then that's kind of it. And it just is very primitive for what you would expect at this stage of the development cycle, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to, a very last thing is that, and I hate to like drag the accessibility thing in there because I know a lot of people are just sort of throwing it out as like a gotcha at Blizzard. But in some cases, there are things that they've lost at the baseline level here that were for that. Personally, I find it really hard to keep track of, in a big AoE pool, what mob I'm targeting. It's my own failure, but like there's a lot going on. And so the way I solve it is what I'm targeting is at full alpha and everything else is slightly faded. I can't do that now. And it's also slightly bigger. And those are like really simple little things that feel like they're not like, that's not cheating. That's not sort of feeding me information I shouldn't have. It's just making it visible. And I'm sure that for some people, the accessibility things are a lot more extreme, but I don't want to speak for them. But those are like really simple options that Blizzard now needs to provide because there's no add-ons to do it. And it doesn't seem like it's a big ask. That's all.
We had a question come through, and any one of you guys can chime in if you have a response to this, but Bendrick asked, how much of things not feeling good right now is Blizzard relying too much on the weekly patches to fill in the gap? I guess another way to ask that is, will things feel better when they fill in these gaps? Will they fill in these gaps? We can only hope? Question mark? Did I word that correctly, Bendrick? Feel free to chime in if you want to. But any of you guys have a response to that?
I think also what they're implying is that because we're only getting updates once a week, we get a patch and it doesn't have what we want it to have. So then we're stuck waiting in another week when potentially there could be like smaller little sub patches in between, or they push things out as they finish them. If that would feel better, because also like you said, they're working a week or two in advance. So if they already have these things ready, maybe to, settle the community, maybe just say, or put out a post and say, hey, we've done this. This is what we plan on releasing.
I think we actually saw that with the whole transmog debacle this week as well. Like people lost their minds when they saw like 800,000 gold to unlock all transmog. And then Blizzard said, well, hold on, wait. It is, it will be warband wide. It won't cost quite as much, because there was a lot of commotion about that this week. Yeah.
Yep.
That's something that I agree with Jedith there. They should be doing that. They should be saying like, on the docket for this month is like, we're working on Havoc updates. You'll see them in the next couple of patches. Because right now what happens every Tuesday or Wednesday when they do the patch note drops and everyone jumps to it and think, oh my God, is this the one where they're going to say like, we fixed nameplates, or is this my class changes? Are we going to work? And then they scroll down and then no Demon Hunter changes, or it's only Devourer. Oh, well, okay, then, well, I guess I'll close this tab and not open the beta and move on till next week. And that's like a really deflating feeling when there's like pressing issues that they're really waiting to see about. And you don't even know if Blizzard are doing anything.
Right.
I think I fully agree. I think it's the communication. It's the restoring confidence and faith in the player base that they know it's coming. They did a roadmap for alpha. You knew week to week what you were getting. So you had a confidence in the development. You knew what to anticipate. With the alpha, I mean, Mr. GM every week, and I know it was echoed by all of us, the players, was like, there is details is in on the edit mode, but it's not currently usable and not currently working. And just every week, it was like, is this going to be the patch where we get a working damage meter? And then the full alpha went by, so that was what, 5 or 6 weeks, and then we're into a couple weeks into beta. We finally get the damage meter, and actually, it's such a primitive version of what a damage meter should be that it doesn't really give you massive amounts of confidence where you go, well, we've waited 8 weeks for this and it barely functions. There should be way more available already. So why isn't there? Because surely if you're working on a damage meter, some of these features are just so obviously things that should be there. So is it a manpower thing? Are they struggling to get the resources at Blizzard to actually code it? Is it a lack of awareness? Do they not know that it needed more functionality? Like, what is the issue there? And that's where we don't really know the player. Like, is this the completed version of this? Are they still working on this? Do they know? That's where we need some confidence.
Yeah.
From them.
Yeah, like, I don't know the complexity of how damage meters work, but I'm sure it's what it does is it pulls an aggregate of certain things from the combat log and just puts it into it displays it into a number, right? Like it can't have taken them 8 weeks to just set it up so it shows you damage done, healing done, interrupts. Like there's no way that that's all they've got done.
Or
in 8
is there a way?
I sure hope not. I sure hope not.
I think like when you can see the way people talk about this stuff, people are willing to give Blizzard the room to do it. Like at the start of the alpha, everyone was saying it's only the alpha, it will come. Everyone is willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on this. And in some cases, it feels like that should be reciprocated just a little bit of we know the damage meter, it is coming this week, we're going to have this mode. But we are still working on like damage taken, but and so on, any other feature. We have a death log coming, those kinds of things. But instead, they just sort of drop it in there, and then like a response in a thread will say, "Oh yeah, the damage meter is enabled, by the way. Sorry, we forgot to mention it." And then you turn it on, and it's tracking like damage you do to yourself on there and adding it on.
Burning Rush, Monk's Stagger is showing up as damage.
Yeah,
Like, the most ridiculous things.
And because we don't know anything about what they've done here, the only takeaway is, so this is the finished product. This is what you like think we need, and then everyone immediately then goes to Reddit and says, you know, oh, this is terrible, this is awful, what a joke. When it probably lies somewhere in the middle. It's probably not finished, but it probably also isn't getting like full elaborate details level extra development behind the scenes. But the reaction is always going to be the most extreme negative. And they're doing it to themselves by not just saying like, hey guys, this is the situation.
I think maybe one of their fears, maybe fear isn't the right word, is that, you know, they'll come out and say, well, we don't quite know how to resolve this issue or how to answer this question. And everyone's response would be, just use details. Just use Plater, you know? Like, why are you guys struggling when there's already something that does it? Maybe that's, I don't know. That's kind of what springs to mind.
Well, that's exactly it, right? You've got 20 years of compiled data. You can literally just go on CurseForge or whatever and see what are the most downloaded add-ons. Okay, they're probably the most downloaded for a reason. Yeah. Details has 40 million downloads. Okay, maybe we copy those features then within reason. Now, obviously, I don't know how it works with like just verbatim copying these add-ons, but I don't know. I don't know the legal side of things and yada yada, but probably look at what features people want and use that information. I think Blizzard are making it harder for themselves somehow along the way, where you know, there's some stuff getting lost in translation here, where you're just like, I don't really know what, like, I'm not a UI developer, but I don't know where the difficulty is coming from. I'm just worried, like I'm just concerned because I don't want Blizzard to get the backlash from this, because I really respect what they're trying to do for improving combat specifically, though ultimately I do think that MMOs are better for having add-ons. In general, combat add-ons, okay, I like Blizzard kind of being more in the driver's seat there, but I'm just really concerned that they're not gonna do it, and they're gonna get a lot of flack from the community as like, I told you so, and it would be kind of rough. It would be a rough expansion, I think, if that's the case.
Speaking of MMOs,
I think like to very quickly bring it back to like the melee thing that we've been talking about. In this case here, I really don't want to see Blizzard put something like a barrier between someone getting to experience what the class design team has done on a spec because of the UI barricade there. And that this is like a universal thing where if they've created a really cool design, I'm not saying that's for all of them, but there are some, and then someone goes and tries it and then the UI just bounces them off immediately, then that's not just like the UI team, their work being panned. The class design team is going to take the heat from that as well, solely because the UI can't cover those requirements. That's a really good point. Yeah. Because ultimately in an MMORPG, the class is, I like to say the class is the lens via which you see the game. Other activities in the game might not be that fun, but because your class feels really good,
it makes that content fun. Or vice versa, like your class doesn't feel very good, you're doing fun content, but because your class doesn't feel that good, it makes it not feel that good. So if the UI is making playing your class more difficult and maybe less engaging, then yeah, you might have an issue with the class, and then you're more likely to probably quit the game. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Speaking of MMOs with add-ons and fantastic classes, I had this big section mapped out for EverQuest and WildStar, but listen, guys, we can't do it. I'm sorry. I know we were all very excited about it. We were going to talk about EverQuest for 30 minutes, but Jedith he's got Break the Meta to host or cast. Cast. You guys got Saturdays to experience and live out. So we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up. Sadly, but that just means that I'm gonna bring you guys back on sometime in 2026, and the whole podcast will be dedicated to EverQuest and WildStar. We'll break the mold, not break the meta. We'll break the mold. All right. You guys have been fantastic.
Oh, I could do that. Yeah.
You guys have
We should all start playing those games again before we do it too.
I want to bring back
a week or two.
WildStar, man. WildStar in 2025, I think it would pop off. I just have a feeling. Yeah, I think we're ready for it now.
Yeah.
That really hurts saying we should play it. We can't play it, man. I wish I could.
There must be some like private servers or something. No,
probably for
there might
one
be
being built. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to ask you guys one final question, then I'm going to let you get out of here for obvious reasons. And Jedith, I'm going to start with you. If you could send one message to the dev team right now about Melee specifically, what would it be? What do you want to tell these guys?
Oh, geez.
I know. Put you on the spot.
About Melee.
Or whatever comes to mind. I don't want you to stress. Don't stress. It's all good.
Honestly, my biggest thing, it's going to come down to like a UI issue. And the biggest thing that I've been harping on to my Twitch chat has been the audio alerts for the Cooldown Manager. They just really irk me for some reason. I went to school for audio, like that's kind of my thing. So I can rant about the specific audio attached to abilities and how they affect how they feel. Like for example, Glaive Tempest. When you press Glaive Tempest, it just has like a little like whoosh sound, and it's very doesn't feel good to press. But if it had an audio clip on it that had more of a transient at the start and it made it more impactful when you press it, it would feel better. So with the Cooldown Manager, they really need to take another look at the clips that they've provided us. I think the way that they've processed them and the effects they put on it are not good. I think they need to maybe take a look at what weak auras have given us in terms of things that were used as audio alerts. And obviously, you can't copy it word for word or clip for clip, but just kind of understand why those were selected and why people use those. And hopefully they can improve that. I think that's my biggest thing that I would push for myself right now.
No, I think that's a really sound, no pun intended, answer. Maybe the pun wasn't intended. Who knows? Psybear, same question, man. One thing you could send to the Wild dev team right now about Melee, what would it be?
So I really like what Jez just said there. That was really good. Yeah, improve all the feral druid sounds, because it sounds like I'm shredding paper. Like, you know, in school when you pretend to rip paper, that's what they sound like. Improve those as well. But no, my thing is I think they need to readdress this simplification of specs, because I actually think they're looking at the wrong thing. They're looking at rotations, and I actually think, and button presses, I actually think it's the talent trees that are more complex. When you go and play a new spec, generally you only have 4 or 5 different rotation buttons, but then you have 200 talents to look at, and hero talents may or may not change your rotation, etc. And I think that is actually more scary as a new player than figuring out how to press your buttons. So I would actually maybe if they want to go down this road, maybe look at mop talent design, where you had a few choices that were more interesting, a different type of movement utility, or like a crowd control utility or something. They were more impactful decisions, I feel, based on the direction they're trying to go. So I actually think if they do want to simplify things and remove, because right now on the current war within talent trees, you can opt in or out of complexity with certain specs. They're removing that in Midnight for a lot of them. So maybe you need to readdress the talent trees as a whole, if that's the case.
I need that Michael Scott meme where he slaps the table and says "Thank you," because I could spend all day complaining about the talent trees, but again, we're out of time, so I'll hold myself back.
Next
but
time, 2026.
Yes, sir. Word up. One thing, man, that you could send these devs. What's it going to be?
What side? And I agree with Jed. But what side just said is I could go on endlessly about the talent tree thing, but like I'd rather end on a positive note or do a compliment sandwich. But I just kind of want to say that like enhancement is a really good example of how they should be approaching the simplification. It is like it was the worst situation that ended up in arguably one of the best endpoints, and whoever or whichever part of the dev team was involved in that, one, please iterate a bit more because we aren't doing that enough on the classes because we're all in the other thing. And two, please take a look at some of the other specs that have sort of had a bit of a wonky implementation and apply the same principles there. Because I know I'm just gushing about my preferred spec, but it is a really clear example of fixing the worst problem in the best way. And in other cases, it's a case of it wasn't much of a problem and we've just completely nuked it. And there needs to be a closing of that gap. That's what I'd tell them.
You guys are nothing short of fantastic. I appreciate your passion. I appreciate your time. Appreciate your commitment. Real quick, we're going to go around one more time. Jedith, where can people find you, man?
Twitch.tv/Jedith, YouTube.com/JedithTV, on Twitter @JedithTV. Twitch is the only one that doesn't have TV at the end.
Okay. I'll forgive you for that. Just so everyone knows in the YouTube description, I'm sure everyone's already seen it. All their links are in YouTube description. Feel free to click them, follow them, sub to them, all the fun stuff, please. Psybear, you're up. Where can people find you?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Brutall, for having us on. Really appreciate it. It's been really fun. Thank you for hosting. Also, thanks to the Blizz devs. Really appreciate your work as well, as much as we might be critical at times. And thanks, boys. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You can find me, chat, Psybear_TV on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, OnlyFans, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, all that kind of stuff.
Word up, where can people find you? And thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, it's been really good. Thanks for having me on. And you guys as well. It's been a really good chat. You can I rant on Twitter very occasionally on Von_WordUp. You can read my guides on Icy Veins. That'd be nice. If you want to learn Havoc, Feral, or enhancement, or on Wowhead for enhancement, and on YouTube, I'm Word Up Wow. Eventually, it's just waiting to process the getting rid of the bunch of numbers.
It was like Word Up 834. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had like a bunch of numbers, and I've asked it to get rid of it, but I'm waiting for them to process it.
Yeah,
but I don't want the bunch of numbers.
Yeah, if you go to youtube.com/@WordUpWow, I think that's how you get there. Correct?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, the links will all be in the description down below. Gentlemen, you are nothing short of amazing once again. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for being here for the Saturday special. My name's Brutall, and go check these guys out. Have a great rest of your day, and happy Thanksgiving to anyone celebrating it this week. We'll see you next time. Hey, real quick, I know the episode just ended, but I believe I forgot to mention who is going to be on the next episode. So without further ado, we have J.B, the only person older than me playing the game nowadays. We have Crims, who has been a high-level Mythic Plus person who has participated in the MDI and the Great Push and whatnot many times. And an unknown guest taking up the third slot. That person is unknown because they are unknown to me. I have not gotten confirmation on my third guest yet, but I will bend over backwards to have a third guest. But between J.B and Crims, we should have a really good show. Next week's topic, episode 5, will be about Mythic Plus, what works, what doesn't work, how to break out of the 2K, 3K area into higher keys, why you may want to strive for that, ? But yeah, anyway, JW, Crims, and somebody else that we will figure out later. But anyway, just wanted to let you guys know that, since I believe I forgot to say that during the episode.